how to make, or how I made, the banned book bookshelf. Let's get into it. To kick things off, I started with the 6 laminated panels that would make up the outer framework for the shelf. I squared each plank with the jointer and planer and glued them up in the panels. When dry, I cut the panels down to dimension, 2.5 feet by 13.5 inches. Then, to join the corners, I opted for a quasi-half-blind dovetail slot joint of sorts. I wanted something a little more interlocking than just a dowel butt joint, so I used the router and the dovetail bit to get the job done. With the framework pieces ready to go, I switched over to getting the lattice panels done. If you want a full breakdown on how I put these panels together, click the link in the top right. But to quickly summarize, I cut out a mitered frame and a ton of 1/4-inch thin strips. I group all the parallel pieces together and use the table saw to mark the perpendicular joints. Then fine-tune the full depth of the lap joints on the lattice work. Once all those cuts are made, it's time to glue up. While those dry, let's pivot back to the shelf frame panels. I designed it with 3 fixed shelves to support the lattice belt and also allow for a top dado for the hidden door. To affix these, I cut mirroring dados at the desired heights in each panel, where I would later glue the shelves into place. At this point, I also cut the dado in the bottom panel for the hidden door to slide, and cut a slot in the left bottom panel so the door could move in and out of the shelf. To join the frame panels to the lattice belt, I cut tongue and grooves on the joining edges. With all the cuts ready, it was time to glue. I did the bottom frame first. the frames had cured, I joined them to the lattice belt. And then gave all the interior faces a finishing level sand down before moving to the backing. I couldn't help but clean up the lattice too. To do the backing, I used a dado bit with the ball bearing and ran the router along the back of the shelf. I cut the fixed shelf dados a ½ inch longer than the shelves, so the shelves would sit away from the back edge and not inhibit the flow of the router cut at this point. Then, after squaring them, I cut the backing pieces down to size. And then cut a tongue and groove into the long edges of each piece. Rounded over the outer edges to give the backing a funky bubble effect. Then got to work sanding them down. To keep a consistent edge, I decided to sand them down in order and adjacent to one another. Then, with some glue and a finishing gun, I assembled the back. With the shelf virtually done, I quickly whipped up a laminated panel for the hidden door. Using a ball gouge, I cut a slight handle into the edge of the door. With the secret door ready, I started working on the feet. To ensure strength and stability, I opted for an angled bridle joint. After squaring all the pieces, I cut a taper in the 4 feet. Then cut the ends to a 10-degree angle for a wider, more stable base. To match the taper, I cut a 23.5-degree angle in either end of the stretchers, then started working on the bridle joints. I used the table saw and sled jig to hollow out the mortise in the feet. Then the miter gauge to clear the bridle joint shoulders on the stretchers. Not a bad fit right off the machines. After some cleanup, it was time to glue. I then rounded over the edges for a tidier look and cut doweled butt joints to connect all the footed pieces. After that, it was time to sand everything down. While I do that, I'd like to invite you to like, subscribe, and ring the bell if you want an update when I post my next video. I love hearing from you guys too, so don't hesitate to leave a comment below. With everything sanded, I got to work attaching the feet to the shelf. Then it was time to apply the finish. Using a homemade jig, cut the holes for the mobile shelf pins in the two larger open sections of the shelf. After whipping up a few more laminated panels that would serve as the mobile shelves, I used a straight gouge bit to cut the recesses for the pins in either end of each shelf panel. Due to some technical difficulties, here's some throwback footage of how this pin and shelf system works from a cabinet shelving unit I put together in a previous video. And that's a wrap. Thanks so much for watching. For more DIY projects and shop upgrades, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. And I'd love hearing from you guys, so feel free to leave me a comment below. Until next time.